once you're into a weird fetishy kind of game, you realize that there are other people that understand your language and they trade it back and forth with you. And when you find those people, be careful, because those are going to be your friends for life. Last week, when we talked about how I got started, how Unkie Phil became deeply entrenched in the motorcycle industry without having any idea whatsoever about what I was in for. Remember, my family members, none of my family members had been motorcycle dealers. None of my friends had been motorcycle shop owners. I had nothing to go on. Nothing. I had absolutely no experience. I was completely ill-prepared for this job. What I did do, though, what was kind of fun, is to earn some moolah on the side, to earn a little loot over there. My buddy, Scott Smallwood, by the way, look him up. He's a pro BMX rider, one of the best in America by far. And Scott had decided that as much as we loved riding scooters and doing the vintage two-stroke bike thing, Scott wanted to take it a little further. And early in the game, many, many years ago, it was decided that on the west coast of America, where people are cooler and just a little bit more hip, on the west coast of America, people had decided to start taking two-stroke motor scooters, right? Which, now, I know you're going to think, motor scooters, yeah. But no, these are two-stroke 200cc bikes with a 4-speed manual transmission. And they'll run 60, 65 miles an hour out of the crate. And because they're two-stroke, they're air-cooled, they're crazy lightweight, and the motor's in the back. It's actually under your butt. So a risky hand on the throttle, a little whiskey throttle and a little idiot clutch, and you're just Pee-wee's Big Adventure right down the street. You're chasing this thing. And the scooters are more fun. Vintage scooters, two-stroke scooters, are more fun than anyone will let you know about if they're careful. And what I learned real quick and real fun was that other people were also into this weird thing. And I traveled around America going to these scooter rallies all over the place and met people that, like me, were degenerate motorcycle racers that also didn't have the budget to be any good at racing motorcycles. So there's this thing called American Historical Racing Motorcycle Association called ARMA. And ARMA is where people go that can't afford real good motorcycles to race on. And they do it under the excuse of being like, we're keeping vintage alive. You're not. You really just can't afford an R6. So ARMA is all about taking old equipment that other people have raced and ruined, bringing it back on the cheap, and then racing it around the same racetracks and not being anywhere near as good as at it. Like, so you can take a bike that used to be turning in a 2:13 lap time, and then you can rail it out there 10 years later and pull in a 2:60 lap time or a 2:59 lap time, and people pat you on the back and be like, well done for keeping that dream alive. Well done for going out there on that RD 350. And, we love the sound of two strokes. Yay, keeping it alive. And meanwhile, you're running around on leathers that weren't safe 20 years ago, or they came straight from Pakistan. It's a low budget form of motorsport. And it turns out there is something in a lower budget form of motorsport than ARMA. And that form of motorsport is called motor scooter racing. And these guys on the West Coast had figured out a way to convince these racetracks and these racing organizations to let them go on, like at lunchtime or, in the morning. And they paid money to get on the track just like everyone else did. And they had to pass tech, but it was their own tech because motorcycle people didn't know where to start on a 1959 Lambretta or whatever. So these cats convinced these race officials to let them on the track in these motor scooters with 10-inch wheels that go 75, 80 miles an hour because they've been breathed on, right? And they're like, yeah, it looks like a 1964 Lambretta. Sure it is, but it's got a 235 Weisco Suzuki piston in it. It's got a TMX 35 millimeter carburetor hanging off of it. It'll run 85 down the back straight with no problem on a 4-speed transmission with an internal chain drive. It's garbage, and you're driving it at 80 miles an hour. The brakes weren't effective when it went 45 miles an hour, and we're on a racetrack. So this is a true thing of like real wacky weirdo fetishists. And I know people that race YSRs, and a YSR is a half-scale 50cc Yamaha sport bike, and they think that scooter racing guys are just screwed in the head. Truly, we are the dumb of Dumb and Dumber. Now, all that being said, I run into these cats and we all decide we're going to start a racing organization on the East Coast. Now, does anybody know the difference between West Coast and East Coast? It's about a 10-to-1 earning ratio, right? The money that you spend, like West Coast people are like, yeah, you know, I'm living in a trailer, but I'm spending $2,500 a month. East Coast people are like, I'm spending $250 a month and I have the floor of an old factory, right? So that's the difference, is there's a lot less talent and a lot less money to be had and spread around in the Midwest and the East Coast. And you find that we're ambitious and we're eager, but we're garbage, you know, and we're willing to make up for it with aggression and just sheer balls, right? And we did. And that's how we ran our racing organization. And we got allowed on the racetrack. And we got allowed on the racetrack, and a bunch of idiots with scooters got put on a racetrack, a legit straight up, we're talking about Virginia International Raceway. We're talking about Mid-Ohio. These are real race courses where people with real sports cars and real motorcycles go damn near 200 miles an hour. And we're out there on, in our back straight, you could eat a sandwich on the back straight. Just crack the throttle wide open, get in a deep tuck and just, and put your hand behind you because it looks cooler, you know? And you do everything you could for aerodynamic advantage. But meanwhile, you go 72, 73, maybe 75. That's all you got. But you make it up in the turns, don't you? And scooters have no lean angle. You lean it over about 20 degrees and you just scrape metal. But really what it was is it was killing each other over $3 trophies. And we were all washed up. So guys like Scott, man, he's a legit racer. He's a true sportsman. He has the eye of the tiger. He goes out on the track, and every time he goes out to win. And he will put you in the corner. He'll show you a wheel and take you down over a trophy that means nothing. Winning against us is like the Special Olympics. There's nothing special about winning against our group. But we raced motorcycles. We were legit for a while out there on the track with bikes that were much bigger and much harder than us. That's one of those weird things that you never could have predicted. You never could have seen that coming. And in those very weird days, these manufacturers who were dipping their toe into the motor scooter industry in North America started going, I bet you if we gave them some sponsorship money, people might see our product. They were wrong, but we cashed their checks. We took their helmets, we took their leathers, we took their parts at cost or dead cost, and we ran it for all it was worth. And what these guys should have realized is just because you're on the racetrack does not mean you're NASCAR. We sometimes would draw crowds to our races in the tens of people. Mostly wives, kids, that kind of thing. Not really a strong buying environment. Sometimes we would have a scooter rally that would happen in conjunction with our race, or we would work it out so our race happened in conjunction with a scooter rally. So then at least the people in the stands spoke the language that we did on the track. And they could be like, wow, I could be doing that too if I had $200 worth of Pakistani leathers. And it was funny, but it's a weird thing that once you're into a weird fetishy kind of game, you realize that there are other people that understand your language and they trade it back and forth with you. And when you find those people, be careful, because those are going to be your friends for life. That may come back to haunt you at some point. These are people that you'll be like, I love this guy. He's great. I've never met anybody from Chapel Hill before. Turns out it's super cool. Oh, he crashed his bike out in practice. You know what? I can't go out. I've got an extra bike. Go ahead, take my bike out. Don't ever do that. He's going to crash your bike. It means nothing to him. He's going to crash the living hell out of it. He's going to bring it back in 4 pieces. You live, you learn, right? That kind of a thing, it happens in every vocation. It happens in every sport. It happens in everything. When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. Hunter Thompson said that, and it's absolutely true in everything. And it happened for me too. And it's one of those reasons why I've managed to stick it out, because every one of those moments is so tasty. It's so wild to come back at the end of a weekend and go like, yeah, I totally high-sided and my shoulder may never be right again. And my wife has 2 broken ribs. But my God, man, the drive home is ecstatic. We got 2 broken bikes in the back of the van and we've had the best time ever for about $180. That's cool. And if you can turn that into your job, you may have hit it. You may have found the exact butter zone to have a really good time, man. All right, guys, if you've had fun with this, by all means, I'm not begging you. This should be something you want to do. But remember, this is Moto Stories with Unkie Phil. We're here to let you have a good time. We're here to literally share some back and forth. Comment on your weird stuff that happened to you because of this. Because seriously, this is what we're into. We're into sharing stuff. I love this. This is a big, big part of my life and the joy that I get. We do the Cleveland Moto podcast because it's something we can share. So you should check that out. If you want to hear a bunch of guys sitting around drinking $600 bourbon and talking about motorcycle stuff, that's what we do. Our whole thing is legit. We're not trying to be too stiff about it. We want to ride fast and take chances. That's where really the fruit of this is. That's where we get to go like, oh man, I made it. I didn't die just then. I didn't die just then. But we want you to do that. So remember, folks, ride fast, take chances.